Within the underground confines of Cabello Tower, inside the plumber's base sat a large training area, an enormous silver-colored hexagonal plated area with large pillars and turrets hooked up to the ceiling. Cesar stood a few feet away from Yuri, who began flipping through her spellbook before landing on a selected page. There was an observatory station with a large window above the entrance doors to the training hall, and inside, with a panel and microphone in front of her, stood Kate in her plumber's outfit next to Raven. Yuri lifted her hand up with her palm facing Cesar, causing bolts of energy to come out of thin air and target her friend. Making an X with his arms in front of his face and without hitting the watch, Cesar transformed into the broad-shouldered, shell-covered alien, Powerball. He began blocking and deflecting the energy blast sent from Yuri with his armor. Back to what we were discussing. You can't just leave your partner in the middle of an assignment like that, Kate said, pressing a button on the control panel and speaking to the microphone, letting the two heroes be able to hear her through the speakers in the training room. Powerball sighed. I didn't leave him, he said before curling up into a ball and rolling towards Yuri. Yeah, you kinda did, Yuri said, causing a ramp made out of hard light to form in front of her, making the alien roll up the object and over her. The ramp disappeared with Powerball transforming into Locust and landing on the floor with its huge two-toed grasshopper-like feet. Come on, I prioritized. Khan went after the Nanochips and I went after Angel, Locust replied, turning around looking up in the direction of the observatory station. Regardless, you should have been the one to go after the nanotech. Angel taunted you like a kid on a playground and you fell for it, Raven responded. Locust lifted his arms up. But Angel was... Raven suddenly cut him off. What? What was he doing that got in the middle of you and your billion-dollar industry? The future of this company lies in your hands. It's important that you realize that, especially with this meeting that's coming up, Kate said. Locust sighed. Sounds like you should leave the company. Matter of fact, it sounds like everybody else should leave the company, as long as they're not me. The alien jumped over Yuri and landed behind her. As he landed, his body reconstructed into a green bulbous alien resembling a pufferfish, having 3 spikes sticking out of the top and bottom of his head. His mouth covered mostly the upper front of him, which was filled with dull-colored pointed teeth, and his yellow eyes connected to the corners of his lips. He had arms with 4-fingered hands, short stubby legs, and a long tail wearing black pants that partly covered his stomach, and had the Multitrix symbol on his pants. Yuri turned around with her hand in front of her, creating a shield that was purple in color. The nostriless alien Cesar turned into inflated its body, then spat out a stream of slime, which was blocked and poured over Yuri's magical barrier. You cannot get any more disgusting, Yuri commented as the shield she created disappeared. Wanna bet? Her friend asked, breathing heavily through his mouth. No, but here's an idea. Why not just sell the company? You'd still be rich and able to go hero at the same time, Yuri suggested. Cesar turned back into the juggler herself. That's not a bad idea, but I can't just give it away to some random business person who's secretly planning on taking over the world with his drug empire? Yuri raised an eyebrow. Your imagination is just wow. Look, I find the person who stole my tech, save the company, and burn the rest of the bridges when I get to them, he said in an uncaring tone. Kate sighed. Cesar, you have a habit of shutting people out and isolating yourself when things get too hectic. We don't even have a lead on this guy. No, but I have a plan, he said, activating his watch and turning the dial. These nanochips are alien. I download the DNA, become one of them, then take control of the hive, and that's the end of that chapter. And the company? Raven asked. Again, bridge not burned yet. Wait, you turn human, Yuri pointed out. Yeah, I do that. Obviously, but why? Can't you just alien jump whenever? Yeah, but depending on how much alien power I use, combined with quick transformations, equals sleep mode for the Multitrix and lots of nausea for me. Turning normal resets the DNA chamber. Cesar exclaimed before slapping his watch down. He turned into a green-skinned, bald reptilian humanoid with large pointed ears, red eyes, and a chin with several vertical folds in the skin below his mouth. He wore mostly purple clothing with fingerless gloves, black pants, and the Multitrix symbol on the center of his chest. "Who's this?" Yuri asked, glancing up from flipping through her book. "I call this guy DN Alien. What can you do?" DN Alien suddenly shifted his body all the way down to the molecules, turning into an exact replica of Yuri from the clothes to the height, except for the obvious Multitrix symbol on the chest, slightly covered up by the organic jacket. "You tell me." "I don't sound like that," Yuri protested. Cesar began to laugh. "Oh, yes, you do." Cesar's phone, which was sitting on a table inside the observatory section, lit up with a beeping noise. The watch symbol on his chest also did the same. Shifting from Yuri to the alien to himself, Cesar lifted up his wrist, seeing a text from Lyra. She changed the location in time for their appointment. "I have to go." "Training is mandatory," Kate replied. Cesar nodded understanding. "I know, but you said I should take this company more seriously, and that's what I'm doing," he said, holding his right arm across his chest, beginning to stretch. "I'm meeting with Lyra tonight." Yuri chuckled. "Well, okay." Cesar shook his head with a smile. "It's not like that. I mean, if it comes to that, I won't complain, but she helped Guillermo with early concept of the nanotech, so I'm gonna do the responsible thing and find out what's up." Kate nodded. "Alright, we'll cut training short today. Just please don't do anything the media could call us out for." Yeah, I know," Cesar said, opening the door and walking out of the training hall, with Raven giving a look of concern. Driving through the nighttime streets lit up by the streetlights, Cesar peacefully cruised down the road, wearing black sneakers with red soles, fancy-looking jeans, and a suit jacket over a graphic tee. His sleek black vehicle, with center cap of the rims resembled the watch's black and white symbol, while he was in alien form, reflected the city and the lights through his body. A screen below the radio suddenly lit up with a green color with the symbol of a white phone ringing on it, with a red phone symbol next to it, with an American number above them. Cesar tapped the red phone, denying the call, knowing it was from Jensen. Tapping the screen again, he began hearing a radio host's voice. "A stolen gray car speeding around the city with a broken license plate," the man said. "Of course there is," Cesar said, turning the knob on the radio, checking the station before seeing the car the radio host described speeding down the street in the opposing lane against traffic with police cars in tow. He wouldn't be able to resist. He knew its powers could be used for much bigger problems and hated having to deal with small crimes, which he saw to be beneath him, but the instinct of being a hero was strong. After pressing a button causing the roof of his car to fold and convert back, Cesar pressed another button, putting his car in autopilot before unbuckling his seatbelt and activating his watch. Pressing the faceplate down, Cesar transformed into a black and red anthropomorphic battery roughly a foot tall, having pointy legs and 3 fingers on each hand, with a plus and minus symbols on his back. Similar to a battery, there was a lightning bolt-shaped marking on his chest. Cesar now turned into who he called Zaptoid, converted into pure living energy, flew out of the top of the car with a mysterious laugh, and began traveling through the telephone wires after the car chase, leaving behind crackling noises of electricity. A gray car with a broken license plate raced down the street, zooming through a stoplight, nearly causing a car accident. Not that far behind was another black car with a yellow stripe going along both sides of the doors with blue lights flashing above its roof. Flying above both of the cars was a yellow spark flickering in and out as it phased within the electrical wires going along the street. "Stop the car or we will be forced to shoot," the officers in the car shouted. The individuals in the runaway vehicle glanced behind them just before the man in the passenger seat rolled down the window, then aimed a gun at the police behind them and began shooting multiple bullets in their direction. The police car swerved from left to right as the vehicles along the street slowed down and pulled over. The gray car began to gain some distance away from the law enforcers before making a hard right down the street before drifting into an alleyway. Shut the lights off! Shut the lights off! The man in the passenger seat frantically repeated, in the vehicle just in time for the police car to come zooming past the alley. The driver reached for the key, then placed it in the ignition, but as he turned the key, the vehicle wouldn't start. He began to turn the key in frustration. A buzzing noise suddenly came from the vehicle just before the hood of the car burst open without the driver's intent. The two criminals witnessed as yellow electricity came shooting out of the engine, then swirled around the hood before traveling in front of the car and out of their view. A bright red flash of light was suddenly seen going off behind the popped-up hood just before it was slammed down by something they had never seen before. Something with what seemed to be plugs on the tips of his 4 fingers. The creature had the body shape of a humanoid, but wasn't quite human at all. It had dark skin, one yellow eye in the middle of its head, with 2 antennae trailing backwards, and a tail with each featuring a plug on its tip. Both the driver and the passenger screamed at the top of their lungs, frightened at what they were witnessing. The driver turned the key, causing the car to finally start up, then put the vehicle in reverse before backing up into the street. The two-tailed creature walked backwards into the shadows of the alleyway as the 2 men in the car got out with their hands raised in the air. The creature rushed from the roof of the nearby deli as the criminals got escorted away by the police. The black and gray hourglass symbol on the creature's chest suddenly let out a beeping noise before a red light went off. The creature's antennae were then retracted into its body along with its tail as they shrunk down and reverted back into the normal state. In the place of the creature was of course Cesar, who began fixing his hair, placing his hands on his hips and watching the police cars drive away as the accomplice's car was being towed. The young man smiled in satisfaction. Now that was a rush. Walking into the doors of a fancy restaurant on the edge of town, Cesar located Lyra sitting at a fairly medium square table wearing a black pantsuit with her hair in a bun. Sorry I was late. There was a cat stuck in a tree and I needed my immediate attention, Cesar said, pulling out his chair and sitting down. Lyra glared at him with an expression knowing that he was lying. Alright, you got me. I was rounding up all the gluten in the world so it couldn't hurt anyone ever again, Cesar said, not seeing Lyra even flinch. You're right. That was a reference. There was a car chase and I stopped it. It's just not as fun as the cat thing, though. Lyra shook her head. How did you even get to where you are with all this lying and tardiness? Cesar smiled. My abuela says I have moxie, he replied before picking up the menu in front of him. So much money for something so little. And what's with this small font? He added while looking at the menu. Cesar could feel Lyra's eyes locked on him. He glanced up, seeing her menu in front of her determined face as she tried to figure him out. I wasn't always like this. Whatever image you see, Cesar said. Then why don't you tell me? Lyra questioned, stirring the straw in her clear cup of water. As much as I'd like to talk about myself, we're here to discuss the nanotechnology. And I don't really know you all like that, he said, trying to at least have a sliver of responsibility. Who says we can't do both? You tell me what I want to know, and I'll tell you what you want to know. Cesar placed his menu down and looked at Lyra confused. You want to know my origin story? Lyra nodded. Okay, what do you want to know? Where'd you get your powers? Lyra questioned. Cesar let out a light chuckle. That's classified. Are we done now? Lyra shook her head with a smile. No, far from it. What made you want to save lives? Cesar sighed in frustration. Why do you want to know, huh? I'm trying to figure you out. I studied 4 years of psychology, and you're the most strangest person I've seen, Lyra said. Trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet. But congrats on your whole psychiatric thing, Cesar replied. Lyra leaned in over the table with her hands folded. What made you become a hero? She asked, intrigued. Cesar opened his mouth, stammering, trying to form some words to get him out of the situation or dodge the question. He suddenly thought about that moment, that tragic moment that changed the way he saw the world and himself. He hesitantly took a breath, about to explain why he was who he was. Suddenly, a male waiter approached the table, saving Cesar from reliving his past. Lyra glanced over at Cesar before looking at her menu. "I'd like the enchilada casserole, thank you," she said before handing over her menu. "And you, sir?" the waiter asked. "Stuffed peppers with quinoa and black beans." Cesar answered, not giving the waiter any eye contact as he handed over his menu and glaring at Lyra. As the waiter stepped away, Lyra with one eyebrow up and a smile looked at Cesar, still looking for an answer to her previous question. "The things I turn into have predators. I know what it's like to feel hunted. The things I turn into have predators. I know what it's like to feel hunted. That's why I'm a vegetarian," Cesar explained. "Now you know that about me, and we can start talking about the nanochips." "And the things you turn into are?" Lyra asked. Cesar shook his head with a smile. "You know what they are. Almost the entire country knows what they are. Aliens. It's because of me that this place is so technologically advanced, while the rest of the world is 10 years behind." "And what about the rest of the world?" Lyra asked. Cesar shrugged. "What about it?" Lyra cleared her throat. "Ever think about slowly introducing the idea that aliens are a thing and that they already live among us to the rest of the world? They know. West Virginia has necrophagians, or what they call a Mothman. Romania is home to the most of the bones on the planet. I got my Gimlin form in Canada by scanning Sasquatch with the watch. There's theories about a potential hidden city in Madagascar with people that look just like us and mimic animal abilities. And come on, koalas. The world knows. They just call them monsters, which is, honestly, it's a slur." Lyra tilted her head. "If they're all out there like you say they are," Cesar nodded. "They are. Why not just come out and say it, besides having the country keep it to themselves or just tell stories? You don't see New Jersey plastering their Jersey Devil around for the world to see. I mean, they do, but that's the problem. These creatures just want to be left alone. Most of them are refugees. You're saying the Jersey Devil is real and an alien." Cesar shook his head. "Well, he's not an alien, but his left hook is real as you and me. Humans are afraid of things they don't understand, like the watch. I'm sure you didn't understand it when you first got it. However, that was. You know there's conspiracies about that, right?" Cesar rolled his eyes. "There is also a cult that thinks I'm a god, and others that believe I'm a sign of the apocalypse. I've seen it all, so again, not telling. What I will say is that it didn't just fall from the sky one day." "How does a young you react to this sort of power?" the woman asked as if she was a news reporter. "You just won't stop, will you?" "Like any other 11-year-old would. I could care less about the lives I saved or anything regarding that. I just wanted to have fun. I was irresponsible and only cared about myself and my mother," he said, rolling his silverware, which was wrapped in a napkin a few inches back and forth with his finger. Lyra glanced down at the napkin she placed on her lap. "What about your father?" Cesar shrugged. The young woman paused for a moment. "Oh, I'm sorry. My mother..." Cesar quickly cut her off, not wanting this to become a sympathetic situation. "Please, don't try to sympathize or empathize with me. Father's leave. No need to be a dick about it. Guillermo entered my life later on. My mother loved him, and although I had my suspicions on some billionaire swooping in and saving the day, until I realized he actually cared about us. We got really lucky, and I became a science prodigy thanks to him. After the accident, he left it all to me." "That's where you got your money from," Lyra concluded. The hero shook his head. "No. I was already making money by saving people's lives and selling broken alien tech I found on missions." Cesar started looking down at his left wrist, seeing a small half of his watch peering out of his sleeve. "Easy money. Youngest self-made billionaire in the world. You lost her, didn't you? Your mother? Well, yeah. Sometimes people die. That's just how it is. But that's not why I save people. I started with 23 transformations. At first, and I almost called myself C23 until my friend and I started counting down and agreed on 10. I would have used C23, but went with the 10 in honor of her. Now, her, my friend, I couldn't save. Now, before you ask me anything else, because this conversation is getting to the point where I'm just gonna start zoning you out, are you meaning to be nosy, or is it just a habit? Cesar asked curiously. Lyra shrugged. I like to know things. Yeah, I do too. People think I don't pay attention, but I do. My own little way, he said, smirking. I've been studying you too. Really? And what did you find out? Lyra asked, intrigued. Now, me, I hate feeling vulnerable, but you like to know people's business even if you're not in the loop. I'm guessing someone lied to you. Your mother, from what you said before I cut you off. No offense, but I'm not really the one to sit around in a fire and talk about my feelings. My life? You don't even know the half of it. That burn mark on your wrist that you kept trying to hide. Did she give it to you? Guessing on the way it looks, I say you got it around your preteens. Cesar concluded with a raised eyebrow. Lyra paused, rubbing her wrist before stammering, trying to figure out what to say. Now about that nanotechnology, Cesar said. Lyra nodded. The nanochips were supposed to be used for hospitable reasons. Heal wounds and replace damaged cells or even build bridges. Cesar leaned forward, glaring at the young woman, focusing his eyes on hers. So what happened? Why did you almost shut the project down? Lyra sighed, about to continue on what little information she had about the nanotechnology.